Accomplishment Coaching is proud to present the following fine programming. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach. AccomplishmentCoaching.com.
Welcome to the Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach Christopher McAuliffe.
Don't you love that guy's voice? That is Dick Warren, and he is a master in the world of podcasting and broadcasting. I love his voice, don't you?
He does have a really great voice.
Yeah, you do too. You do too.
Yeah, I keep hearing that.
My name's Christopher McAuliffe. I'm so happy to be back in town. I was out of town for a while. I went to Thailand. Can I tell you one thing?
Yes.
Thank you. Just play along. Here's the thing. If you get a call, an email, a reach out from my staff or my team, that because I'm coming to your town, you should probably talk to me because I carry like interview things with me, and like we can go sit and have a cuppa and have a nice little interview. I reached out to the ICF leaders in Bangkok because I was in Bangkok, Thailand before I went to Koh Samui because that's how cool I am.
I don't even know what that is, but I'll go along with it.
It's in Thailand. I'll show it to you on a map. Pardon me. Those people didn't meet with me, and so they missed an opportunity to be, right here, right now.
Podcast.
That's
but
right.
Instead, we have an amazing first guest.
We have multiple amazing people today. You're right. I'm excited to talk about cross-cultural issues. Of course, having come back from Thailand, I'm very cross-cultural myself.
Like I planned that.
Yeah, nice. Well played. My name is Christopher McAuliffe, Master Certified Coach. I've been a coach for 6 years, and also had this here podcast. We thank you for listening, dear listener. That other voice, what's your name again?
Clarice Connolly.
Oh, and in the words of Ed Sheeran, I'm in love with your body, of work and the being that you bring to it. Tell people tell people what you do and how you do it and how they can find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a women's empowerment coach, so I support women in really getting clear on what it is that they want in life and bridging their gap between where they are now and where they want to be, and supporting them through all the transitions in life and really getting them supported and loved up and empowered and really getting them clear on who they are and how magnificent they are in the exact moment. And you can find me on empoweringwomen.coach.
Empowering women, plural, .coach, singular. Got it. All right. We should shout out to our longtime sponsor of this program, Accomplishment Coaching. If you're looking for the world's finest coach training program, and we're not kidding, it's not hype, it's not advertising copy, it's literally in any measures, including the success of the graduates, including the community, including the actual number of hours of coaching received, coaching given, coaching evaluated by MCCs and PCCs. Go to accomplishmentcoaching.com and find out where they have a program near you. One of the things that I know that Clarice and I love about Accomplishment Coaching is that you can go and actually observe the coach training program in process. That's not...
I love that, yeah.
Right? It's not like coming, most places they'll give you a hype, they'll give you a sales session disguised as a workshop or something. But here, no, you can just watch the actual program in place. They actually think that you're smart enough to know whether something's for you or not, and most of us are. Although we could talk about your romantic life and there have been some missteps. What? Not funny? Not funny? I got it. Too soon. What do you want me, people to know about Accomplishment Coaching?
It's amazing. They're offered in 5 different cities. So we have Washington, D.C., there's New York City, there is Seattle, there's also Chicago, San Diego. Oh, it's 6. And Victoria, British Columbia, Canada.
Well done. That's right. If you're near any of those places or going to be, check it out. AccomplishmentCoaching.com. We'll have more information in the second half of our show today. All right. I know you're so excited about our first guest. Do you want to go ahead and give the bio, give the intro?
Yeah. Vicki Flier Hudson is the Chief Collaboration Officer. I'm just so excited that I can't even get it together. And keynote speaker for High Road Global Services Incorporated. It's a company offering cross-cultural training and coaching for global virtual teams, expats, right? I always get it wrong.
Expatriates and leaders across borders. There you go.
So Vicki has helped countless mid to large-sized corporations have successful operations between Asia, Europe, North America. And she delivers high-impact interactive presentations and webinars that build global collaboration.
Is this an issue with reading or is this an issue with sight? that we're dealing with?
I think that's a combination of both.
Okay, got it. She's also the author
excited.
of the book Zen and the Art of Offshoring, How to Build Collaborative and Profitable Team with Your Partners in India, a recipient of Kennesaw State University's Instructor of the Year Award for International Programs. Please welcome to our microphone, Vicki Flier Hudson. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for being had. Hey, look around outside, Vicki. Where do you find yourself today?
I find myself in Roswell, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta in the north. And it's a sunny, beautiful day. A little chilly, though.
Is everything in Georgia still named for peach trees?
Indeed, yes. It's very confusing. It's just almost designed to help people get lost on our streets
You
here.
go down to
So,
the Peachtree Lane, and then you make a left at the Peachtree Plaza. Yeah, I remember.
Exactly.
And
if you've been in Bangkok recently, then you know what our traffic is like in Atlanta.
Maybe a few less elephants, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Well, but speaking of cross-culturalism, and gosh, I love this notion. We could talk about it for days in terms of our work as coaches and organizational cultures. But one of the things that I love that you're willing to talk about is the greater issue in our culture right now. You know, we live in a time that arguably is, certainly in my lifetime, is one of the most divisive, where people are either on one side or the other, and nobody's listening to the other side, and everybody's just in sort of an echo chamber. This division, this cultural divide, is perhaps the most important one, certainly in our society and arguably in the world. Words of wisdom for us? Where do we start with something this entrenched?
Yeah, this is an issue that I've sort of taken on as my personal mission for the year of 2018 because I had an experience watching the Charlottesville white nationalist rally in Virginia on TV, and as a Jewish person, I was watching these people marching in the streets and shouting anti-Semitic epithets, and I had a strange reaction to that, which was actually one of empathy. I felt sorry for them. For the perpetrators, I felt, of course, more sorry for the victims, but I had never had that reaction before where I felt such a rush of empathy, and I wondered if there was something that could be explored in that to help bridge this divide. And so I just started to explore that with some colleagues and some clients, and amazingly, everyone that I've talked to about it has been receptive. And I've been calling the model compassionate courage because we have to still stand up to hate, bias, and all of these things that you mentioned in our extremely divisive society. But at the same time, growing hate within ourselves is not the answer. And so if we're going to have a conversation and listen, I think we have to start with empathy, and that's where I feel like the role of coaching is playing a huge part in this because, of course, coaching can help generate empathy and self-awareness, and these techniques are working. I mean, they do also have a rate of failure when I have these kinds of conversations where I'm using empathy to listen to someone whose view is very, very different from me. It doesn't always go well, but I have had some successes with it too, and right now I'll take that.
Well, give us a place to start. Is there something that we as correct thinking people, what we can do to begin? What's our first step?
Yeah, so I've basically been using a modified version of nonviolent communication, but maybe simplifying it a little bit. So I'll give you an example. That's probably the easiest. I saw a kind of negative biased post on Facebook that was also it also contained a piece of incorrect information, and so and it happened to be about Jewish people, and so I thought, well, you know, I could just kind of message this guy or call him up and say that he made this negative remark and it really offended me, but I didn't think that was going to get us anywhere.
Make a difference, yeah.
So I started with a question. I private messaged him and I say, hey, I saw your post and I wondered where you got this information. And he came back and said, oh, I found it in an article. And he was expressing some frustration. And so I just sort of fed back what I heard from the post. And I said, you know, I'm kind of hearing some frustration here about hypocrisy or whatever the theme of the post was. And I just kind of let him express his point of view. And we went back and forth like that for several transactions. And at the end of the transaction, once he felt that he was heard and his point of view was heard, I said, by the way, when you use this term, I wanted to share my experience of what that's like as a Jewish person. and ask you to maybe be more mindful about how you use the term. And he came back and said, you know what, I didn't even think about that. And you're right, I need to be more aware of it. I think had I started with that, that conversation would not have taken that track.
Yeah, that would put him in the defense.
And a great example of what you're talking about, compassion and courage.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because, I think that, people don't arrive at these views when they arrive there for a reason. They're not born with these views. And while there are some people who are sort of beyond reach in terms of extreme levels of hate, I do believe that for the majority of our maybe people in our circle, our friends and colleagues who are either misguided or scared, or they just have a different point of view, it's worth beginning with empathy and then moving into the request.
And I hear that for ourselves too, because you said people are scared or misinformed, and I notice I'm scared because other people are misinformed, right?
Yeah.
So recognizing, like, I'm actually walking around in a world where I'm sort of terrified much of the time, and the latest, whatever the latest news is, which seems to be more dramatic every day and more, reactive and reactionary every day, tends to get us more and more scared, I think.
Absolutely. I share that.
I agree.
Is this something that you're seeing in cultures outside of the U.S., or are we mostly insular and insulated now enough that other people are just getting along fine and we're the knuckleheads?
All cultures that I have interacted with anyway, which is a fair number, suffer from stereotyping and bias. This is a human trait. And it expresses itself in different ways, of course. So maybe in one culture, like the U.S., where race is a major issue, you'll go to another country or another region of a country where race is not so much an issue, but class is a bigger issue, or perhaps people with a different religion. So the bias is definitely cross-cultural. The way it gets expressed varies.
Gotcha. So there are these divisions elsewhere. What do you think is the role of a coach? Is it to seek first to understand, or do we, when we're advising someone who's clearly a partisan in some situation or, represents something, right? I'm thinking about people in the C-suite, for example, where often people on the front lines are relating to those C-suite or those executive leaders, not as leaders, but as somebody who's out of touch of my everyday.
Absolutely. I actually think it's it's a both. So that's why I call the model compassionate courage, because when I'm coaching executives, and I do coach a lot of global leaders at that level, I definitely first start as a coach with the compassion piece, so listening to understand where did these views come from. But part of my job is the second half, which is the courage, because if the leader doesn't come out with a clear message about any particular wrongdoing in either in their own company or in the world at large, then that's not showing courage. So they actually need both. I need to understand as a coach where they're coming from. How did they arrive at these views? What experiences informed their current viewpoint? But at some point, and that this actually just happened, I was coaching a client who is from Mexico, and she was talking about, what if I encounter, she just moved here from Mexico, and she said, what if I encounter racism here against Mexicans? She says, I'm generally not really offended by that so much. It's just sort of like I just try to ignore it. And so as a coach, I asked her some powerful questions, but at the same time, in the end, I encouraged her, you are a leader. If you don't say something, who will?
Who will, yeah.
And that's not modeling boldness and courage for the people under you. And so she agreed. We kind of went through some scenarios and role-playing around how she would respond, not react, but respond to negative remarks about Mexicans. And so we kind of coached through that process. But yes, it absolutely, for leaders, has to be both. And I count myself in those ranks. I mean, I'm running a company that exists to help global teams, but if I'm not speaking out publicly against hate and bias, then I'm also not doing my job.
What are you seeing as the dominant expression of divisions in companies these days? Is it a class difference? Is it a people not understanding other cultures, or in some ways sort of demonizing other cultures in global organizations? What's the biggest rift that you're seeing, or the biggest issue that's arising?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, when it comes to in the sort of multinational companies that I'm observing, working with, interacting with in some way, I'm seeing a rise in sophistication with the cross-cultural piece, especially across international boundaries. So that has really been increasing over the last 5 years, and that 99% of audiences that I'm interacting with are really very open to doing better and doing more across national borders. And I love that. It's very inspiring. Where I'm seeing companies still struggling, and not just companies I work with, but I, of course, hear a lot through my colleagues and in social media, is race. It's just a subject where we are choosing to avoid our own discomfort rather than discuss race, and where we're not willing to take responsibility. We're still defending against fault. But there's a difference between taking responsibility and defending against fault. And we somehow have not gotten to a place where we are confronting this issue head on and willing to have compassionate and courageous conversations about it.
It seems fraught with peril. It seems like if you open a conversation about race, then immediately you're open to being typified or classified as a racist or race baiting, or it seems to me like a wise place for most people in an organization to avoid. How do you invite your clients or leaders in organizations to sort of approach this very sensitive topic?
Yeah, absolutely. And your comment, I mean, it's one I commonly hear. I think, though, that avoiding something that is already there and is actually just perpetuating the problem. And so I think what a lot of people and organizations in particular have confused is the difference between being uncomfortable and being unsafe. And being uncomfortable is part of the racial discussion, and while it could be called race baiting or racism, but those are really just terms for avoidance. And so one of my missions is to use the compassionate courage model to help organizations open up dialogue about any kind of division, including race, based on empathy, just understanding where people are coming from. But also, I think a key component to this is learning how to be okay with being uncomfortable and not equating that with being threatened. Because you're right, people jump to that position immediately, especially around the topic of race. But statistically and in research, we still have an issue. So avoiding it isn't going to make it go away.
If only, right?
Right. Indeed.
So I was wondering, where could we read more about your compassionate courage in the article that you'd written about it? Where do we find out more about it?
Yeah, so my website, highroaders.com, there's a resources section. And in that section, there are several free articles and videos and all kinds of things, most of which I've written. And the article around compassionate courage that I wrote for Cover Magazine right after the Charlottesville, Virginia rally is there on that page. And I do encourage people to read it, to agree, disagree, ask questions. This is the whole idea of compassionate courage, is to have a dialogue in which first you listen and you provide empathy, and then you make requests.
Nice, absolutely. So as a world traveler, travel enthusiast, a coach, I'm really excited to know, like, how does coaching differ from when you work with clients like across cultures? So for someone that wants to jump into coaching worldwide, like what would you say like the piece of advice is?
Absolutely. There is a lot that stems from communication differences, and you see this in organizations. So coaching, of course, is happening in major organizations, not just among leaders, but among staff members and team members and associates. And the challenge is that people communicate in very different ways, and if you're not aware of these communication gaps, it could end up being a lot of miscommunication. So a classic example of this that can affect coaching, when yes means no, and Christopher probably experienced this in Thailand and could probably share some stories around. In some cultures, when you say yes, especially with sort of a hesitant tone or a look of pained agreement, that's actually a no, but someone in, say, the U.S. might completely miss that cue. So what comes to mind is maybe the area of accountability in coaching. If you're coaching someone and you say, you ask them, issue them a challenge or an assignment, and you maybe ask some clarifying questions. And then, are you willing to commit to that? And they say yes, but
it's no, right?
But it's no. It might be no. And so just being aware and doing some upfront research about the different communication styles can go a long way in cross-cultural coaching, as well as different sources of motivation. So there's some great tools out there. I mean, in addition to the programs that High Road offers around this topic, but there's some great tools out there that can help people with this.
And I want to make sure people got that website, which is highroaders, HIGHROADERS.com. That's where you can find not only access to the book, but also access to the articles and other comments and commentary by Vicki Flier Hudson. I will say that what I was mostly noticing in Bangkok and in Koh Samui on this recent trip was the lack of sensitivity to the local customs. The Thai people in generally speaking, are kind of quiet by nature, and to raise one's voice is considered very rude in the Thai culture. And yet there's this onslaught of both Western, European, German especially, tourists. There's a bunch of Canadians and Americans, and of course, just oodles and oodles of Chinese tourists. And the distinction is pretty stark. Chinese tourists, those of us that have been to China know that in China, you're very clear. You're just one of a billion people, and you're not one of the special ones, right? Like, it's very much a society of there's a lot of people, and if you want something, you need to be heard. And there's a lot of what I'm going to call Western ideas of rude behavior, like public spitting, like speaking quite loudly, like yelling, even though you're standing next to somebody who's a stranger. And I saw a lot of, what seems like violations of local standards of the Thai culture by all these tourists. Is there an equation of that to behaviors in organizations where the local culture or the dominant culture is just either fully subverted or ignored based on other people's cultures?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's two issues I hear coming up from your story. One is just a clash of values underneath what is in the surface, right? So you can we have this age-old model, the iceberg. It's a little bit maybe outdated, but not really, because it's still quite effective. That there's things you're seeing on the surface, but under that,
right,
there's always cultural values that are playing into that. So in what you described, it would be something like public versus private domain would be one cultural value that's different, and then the preservation of harmony versus directness. And then, of course, just the implicit communication versus the more explicit communication. So all that's kind of going on under the surface. And we like to use that kind of language in this type of coaching because it allows people to be more objective. Because the words rude and polite have absolutely no meaning outside of culture. What is rude in one culture can be absolutely polite and respectful in another. So that is playing out in organizations. You see sometimes the clash of cultural values. And the challenge is not that the cultural values are different. It's most of the time that both parties are not aware that that's what's happening. And so they see each other as being rude or polite, or this guy is frustrating, or why is he doing this? But it's really, there's a lack of awareness. And like I said earlier, that level of sophistication has definitely increased, and I'm seeing wonderful work on that level being done by companies. But the second issue you brought up is this sort of subversion of maybe subsidiaries versus the headquarters culture. And I do still see a lot of that, where the headquarters culture, whoever that is kind of leading the charge and maybe not paying as much attention to seeking input from worldwide sources. And that's not just a U.S. issue. It happens, it's headquarters syndrome, wherever the headquarters happens to be.
It's really great. We're down to our last minute or so, and I want to give it to you. You are extraordinary, and I thank you so much for your work and
thank you for having
what
me.
you've created here.
Thanks for being
But with our last minute, is there a parting thought or a parting shot you'd like to give to 50,000 or so coaches listening today? What would you have us focus on?
I think as coaches, we have an extraordinary opportunity to get people in touch with some of these more challenging issues like bias, and maybe even one level beyond that, even hate. We might all harbor that on some level. And I think as coaches, it is our call to action on some level to help some of this stuff bubble to the surface and to be with it instead of avoiding it, and to help people distinguish between being uncomfortable and being unsafe.
Such a beautiful call forward. Thank you so much, Vicki Flier Hudson, for the work that you're doing. Again, the website is for High Road Global Services is highroaders.com. That's HIGHROADERS.com. You can find not only the book there, which is Zen and the Art of Offshoring, How to Build a Collaborative and Profitable Team with Your Partners in India, but also her latest writings, including the article on compassionate courage. Check it out, highroaders.com. Anything else you want to promote, my friend?
No, I think that's the main thing I would love people to read.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And
thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being as we like to say. All right, Vicki Flier Hudson joining us from her palatial mansion in Roswell, Georgia. When we come back, we're going to talk with the commissioner of the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference about Christian college athletics and coaching. Stay with us. You're listening to The Coaching Show right here on LBSRadio.com.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Are you seeking to change your career to something that is both fulfilling and challenging? Do you want to help people reach their full potential and strive to achieve their dreams? Would you like to inspire those around you and help create a better world? If you're serious about a career change or just want to explore the craft of personal coaching, contact Accomplishment Coaching. With locations across the country in Washington, D.C., Seattle, Chicago, New York City, and San Diego, Accomplishment Coaching is the leading institution in personal coaching. Our staff carefully monitors the entire program, live during the training process, and have met the strict standards of ICF International to achieve accreditation. Through a focus on quality instruction rather than endless modules of training, Accomplishment Coaching will guide you from your very first step all the way to becoming one of the finest coaches in the world. Visit AccomplishmentCoaching.com to learn more. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach.
Christopher McAuliffe is your source for the latest in the world of personal coaching. Whether it be speaking with such luminaries as Deepak Chopra or getting the newest techniques and innovation, the Coaching Show is always on the cutting edge of what's happening now.
Gotham Books presents Marriage Rules by Harriet Lerner. The book Martha Beck calls required reading for anyone hoping to interact successfully with any other human, not just for those in romantic relationships. Get your copy wherever books and ebooks are sold, and visit harrietlerner.com to learn how to change your marriage today.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the coaches training program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Accomplishment Coaching is proud to present the following fine programming. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach. AccomplishmentCoaching.com.
Welcome back to the Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach Christopher McCullough.
Just me, or is that overmodulated?
Very.
All right, and today we've got in-studio guest co-host. What is your name?
Clarice Connolly.
Oh, Clarice Connolly. Also
Yes.
man, everything's overmodulated in my head.
In your
today.
head.
That would be Clarice Connolly. Clarice works with women predominantly. You're a coach. You're a sort of a
Badass.
cultural leader. Yeah.
Yeah.
Around empowering women. How can people find out more, and how can we work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a website, empoweringwomen.coach.
Empoweringwomen, plural, .coach, singular.
Yep.
Got it.
Absolutely.
And any other ways?
I'm on Facebook. I have Life Coaching with Clarice Connolly, and I have an email address. It's clariceco@gmail.com, so reach out if
Okay.
you want to learn more.
Great. And thank you for joining us today, and thanks for bringing what you bring. Clarice, were you an athlete in college?
I was a
or high school?
swimmer.
Were you?
So I know nothing about basketball except for that I was never good at it, but I was a swimmer.
Were you a team swimmer or like an individual swimmer?
Team swimmer.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you would do relays and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And you had to do your leg like the best and
Right,
make sure
absolutely.
that the next swimmer in line was ready.
Yeah.
Good. So you got an experience with team sports.
Yeah, I'm
from that
most
direction.
excited for the coaching.
Nice. It will surprise no one who's ever met me that I was not an athlete, am not an athlete. So I have nothing but great respect for athletes, and also I try not to get stuffed in lockers. We should let people know before we get into this that I'm excited. You can tell that I'm excited about talking with people who are coaching in the sports arena, but also coaching, actually
right.
providing real coaching around coaching and training of coaches. I want to let people know about our longtime sponsor of this here program. Accomplishment Coaching is, by design, the world's finest coach training program. If you're looking for training, whether you've been a coach for a while and didn't get trained initially, or whether you're sort of looking for the next level of training, Accomplishment Coaching, the world's finest coach training program. And that's not hype. That's not an advertising slogan. It's
real.
really their intention, their mission, their vision. And it's the finest coach training in the world. You can find out more by going to the website, Accomplishment Coaching. But what we recommend is both Clarice and I have actually been in the room while they're doing their coach training program. You're invited to come and observe their coach training program in action. You have to sort of sit quietly on the side while they're doing their thing. But that's an incredible opportunity, and it's available in 6 cities. What are they?
Oh, yeah. Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago. It's in San Diego. It's also in Seattle, and Victoria, British Columbia, Canada.
That's right. Any of those cities, get to those cities. They're great places to be. One of them at some time of year is a great place to be. And check it out, accomplishmentcoaching.com. Just let them know you're coming, and they'll put out a chair for you. You can observe the coaches training program and do their training program and be among the world's finest trained coaches. All right. Do you want to introduce Rob?
Well,
I know
last time that didn't really work very well for me, so
No.
I think I get this performance reading anxiety.
I get that.
not
Okay.
great.
He's the commissioner of the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference. He's the National Christian College Athletic Associate Executive Director and the NAIA Director of Champions of Character Initiative. He's a partner at Proactive Coaching, a 3-sport athlete in high school, played 4 years of small college basketball. He's got experience in all kinds of sports, living now and I think joining us today from Liberty, Missouri. We're delighted to welcome to our microphones for the first time Rob Miller. Hello, sir.
Hello, good to be with you.
Thanks for being had, as we like to say. Is it true? Are you in Liberty, Missouri today? Missouri?
I am in Liberty. I've lived here for 18 years, so yeah, it's a good place to live.
Wow.
Man, tell us where Liberty is compared to some of the cities we might have heard of in Missouri.
We're just outside of Kansas City, about 20 minutes from downtown Kansas City.
Oh, man, there's good barbecue in that town.
There's
Holy
some great.
Jolly.
You can spend a whole week eating barbecue here.
Indeed.
Suddenly
All right.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, why don't you get us back on track and find out what Rob does and what's proactive coaching all about?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to know if you could share a little bit about proactive coaching with our listeners. What is it? What's it about?
Yeah, proactive coaching started with my partner, Bruce Brown, lives up in the Seattle area. And he started it many, many years ago, and we've been partners now for over 15 years.
Wow.
Is we believe in intentional coaching and given application models to coaches. We talk to athletes, we talk to parents, but our main focus is to coaches, because we think so many times, especially in today's world, we'll focus on the X and O's, but we'll forget about the intentional part of focusing on culture. How do you teach character through sport? How do you develop a culture on your team? How do you develop leaders? That all takes intentionality. And so we focus on that part of it. And we work with high schools and colleges across the country, some businesses as well, on developing that type of culture, which allows you to be successful.
It's so important, and that's the thing. That's why most, as a parent now, I want my kids to be in team sports because I want them to develop not the individual, there's time enough for that, but the ability to work in a group, to work in a team, and to provide leadership when it's needed. But also, what Chris Rock says in his latest special, if your job is to play the tambourine, play the tambourine. Right?
That's right.
And be the best damn tambourine player ever, but you don't have to be the superstar. We're raising kids at a time now where everybody's special, everybody's got a trophy, right? How does that square with the mission and the intention of proactive coaching? How do you counteract this, or do you love that stuff where everybody gets a trophy?
No. I think we're trying to develop a situation where we do understand all roles on teams have value, but not all roles are equal. And there's difference in that. I'm a basketball coach. That's where I spent most of my time is coaching basketball. And the guy that scores points for me is very important to me. And they're going to get a lot of attention, and that's okay. But they're no more important to me than the person that passed him the ball, the person that set the screen to get him open, the kid that came to practice every day and busted their tail and never got in a game. We have to make them all valuable, but there are different roles, and different roles get different attention.
And when we think of the achievements of the great college basketball coaches or great college coaches anywhere, right? But I'm thinking about the John Woodens and the Coach K's and all those people, right? Their legacy really isn't just the superstars. Wooden, sure, he created some superstars, but there's a bunch of people that played with him that never went on to professional sports, but got a lifestyle, a lifelong legacy out of working with him. Is that what you're up to?
Yeah, we're trying to say when an athlete's with you, whether they're with you for 3 months, 4 years, whatever it is, when they leave you, not only should they be a better player in whatever sport you're coaching, they should be a better person than when they came into your program as well. And that's our focus is on making them better all around, not just in athletics.
It's an incredibly important mission. What do you guys bring that most coaches, most people, I love what you said. We work with high schools, colleges, and businesses, right? So we can all map that on the team leadership, the teamwork, the tough mind, the thing. When you work with a business or an organizational group, what are you finding is the starting place? What's the first thing that's mostly either missing or off or misguided in teams of people in the workplace?
I like to put it as action statements, because I think as a culture we've gotten really good at T-shirt slogans.
Nice.
We're really good at banner statements. I can walk into any school in this country and any business in this country in about 2 minutes. I can find their mission statement on the wall or their core values, and then look around and see if you can find them. You can see them, or how many know them, And so our job is to take those T-shirt slogans and put them into action statements. So what does that look like in practice? What does that look like in a game? What does that look like in the weight room? What does that look like in the off season? And the business side, what's that look like in customer service? What's that look like in every situation? And I think that's where we try to start with it and say, get away from slogans and get to action statements.
Nice. What's a recent one or one that you remember that sort of gives us a flavor of what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. What's an example?
Well, I'm trying to think. We work with a ton of different people, but I was up with a business of Pella Windows up in Iowa.
Yeah.
And theirs all boiled down to trust. And we had about 200 managers in the room, and we started focus on, they wanted to deliver product, they wanted to deliver and keep their excellence, but they realized in communication they weren't doing they weren't having any trust. And it was a simple thing of saying, are we meeting? Are we knowing what each other wants? And they had just lost communication. And when you lost communication, you lose trust. Mm-hmm. And they were able to bring that trust back in and to see them, and they were already ahead of the curve. Because I think this is the other thing we have found out doing this, athletics or businesses. We've already found out this. You work with two types of people. You work with people who are really, really, really good, that want to get better. That was them. Mm-hmm. Or you work with organizations in crisis. There's a whole lot of people that are okay being average. And they sit in average, and there's 90% of this world that's okay being in that average category. And that's the ones we really are trying to say, you're the ones that can move the whole dynamic if you get with it.
That is such an important thing. I'm going to tell you a story, partly just to vent my spleen, but partly to illustrate the issue here. So when you and I talk about cars, because we're dudes, and sorry, I've already lost half the audience, didn't I? That was a little misstep.
Bring it back.
Yeah. Okay, so we might talk about cars, you and me, if we got together, Rob. And I'm having this experience right now. I saved up my pennies, and I'm buying a nice, what I consider to be fancy car from a company that's supposed to have a great reputation. It's a Tesla. And I have had nothing but negative experience with these people. They don't get back to me. I don't know what's happening. They took my money and then no car ever showed up. Like, every kind of bad situation is happening here. And I'm trying to be a consumer who's an aware customer, but also I'm trying to give them some damn feedback, right? Like, you guys need to do this much, much better. And, in the meantime, like, I don't know, I'm 6 weeks into this thing. I got no car. I'm, still having to, like, they gave me a loaner, and it's like this gas-guzzling SUV thing. When we encounter, and I'm not even talking about as a leader or anything, but in our regular everyday life, when we encounter something like this, where an organization could be doing so much better, what's your guidance? What's your advice?
Well, I think if we come back down and we try to find out where's the misconnection right there, okay, where have you lost it? And I think so many times what happens with, in us in the athletic world, we do become a little bit narrow at times within our own sport. And we need people on the outside that can come in and evaluate us that we trust. And I think sometimes what happens is teams and organizations, they hear, and one thing about it, when you're a business and when you're a team, athletic team, you're out in public, and everybody's going to take the pot shot at you because everybody can do it better than you can do it. That's part of the whole thing, Everybody in the stands is undefeated and has won every game they've ever coached.
Yeah.
The key here, we believe, is that you got to be willing to take assessment. Now, you bring somebody in that you trust that will sit up there, because Joe Blow comes down and tells you you're doing it wrong, you might not listen. But if a mentor comes down and tells you, you know what, you need to improve, that self-analysis and self-assessment, Tony Dungy speaks of this all the time. We have to really self-analyze ourselves, really self-assess ourselves with people we trust that we'll listen to. That's where the starting point is, because when somebody like that looks at you and says you're doing good, you feel good. When somebody says you're not doing well, you listen and you try to get better because you don't want to disappoint.
I've got kids in a couple of sports now, sadly none in basketball, but I got baseball, softball, and dance and soccer. What, from your vantage point as an expert in coaching athletics, what are most of my kids' coaches doing wrong or should be doing differently?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question. I do believe as we look out there, I always put it this way. We're in a culture, we hear all the time, it's funny, when we post something on our Facebook page, we'll get a few, I can always count on, we'll get 4 or 5 people that will respond how bad the parents are in athletics, and we'll get 4 or 5 people that respond how bad the coaches are in athletics.
Right, exactly.
Okay? And overall, I think most people are doing it pretty well. I think we're mostly doing it well, but we do have that 15 to 20% that make it bad for the 100%. As we look at that, though, I really think as we start looking, we've pushed it down. The one thing we talk about is there's 4 stages in athletics. The joy stage, just love playing. The fundamental stage, let's teach fundamentals and skills. The next stage is the competitive stage, and the competitive stage is winning and losing, but it's competing against your teammates for playing time.
Yeah.
And the fourth stage is the mastery stage, where you're doing it at more of an elite level, college, Olympics, pro. What's gone on in our last 30 years is we've taken the joy stage, which used to last up to age 6 or 7, and now we see travel ball teams at 4, 5, and 6. And we've implemented the fundamental and the competitive stage way down. Now, I'm not into trophy for everybody,
right,
but we have to have perspective here. The one thing we're doing, if I could say anything, we're playing 100 games and practicing 10 times when we should be practicing 100 times and playing 10 games.
Got it.
We're missing the fundamental stage. And as a college coach, I can tell you in the last 30 years, what we've seen is kids are bigger, stronger, and faster than they've ever been. No doubt about it. They're bigger, stronger, and faster, and less fundamentally sound. We've skipped the fundamental stage, and we're playing so many games, we're forgetting to teach skills. So if I had to say anything to youth sport, skills, skills, skills.
Do you have anything else? Because I got no skills.
Yeah, the other part of it, don't rip the passion out. Because sometimes what the other thing is we're determining a kid's fate by the time they're 10 and 11 years old.
Yes.
And the simple truth is a lot of kids won't mature. One fact is this: a 13-year-old body a boy's body can have the body of a 10-year-old or a 16-year-old.
Right.
We determine a kid's face at age 10 and they mature at age 14, we've just lost a really good player. And we got to keep kids involved. And the more we say, Michael Jordan never made a team till he was in 10th grade in high school, right? He got cut from his freshman basketball team. In today's world, this is off the edge, but I'll say it anyways. Would Michael Jordan ever played high school basketball because somebody at the youth level said, you're not good enough?
It's incredible. Let's talk about the impact for kids.
Yeah,
I know
that's where I was going. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just like for me, I was never really the competitive person, and as a coach, you just push people to win, or you're pushing people to compete against another person. I was in the joy and passion. I just loved swimming, so there was an impact for me, but I was curious to know what is the most significant impact that you're seeing.
Well, I think we tried long. I think you started at the beginning by saying we want them to teach these life skills,
Right.
Because one question I ask at every place I go into, I'll start out every presentation with parents especially, but coaches too. How many kids here at this high school have gone and made their career playing sports in the last 25 to 30 years? Okay? Most high schools are 0 to 1.
Right.
Okay? I say, how many kids in the last 25 or 30 years have gone on and been on teams the rest of their life? Answer, 100%.
Right.
Every young person leaves to go on to a family, business, community, church, whatever it is, they go to be on teams. Our job is to make them better teammates for life. With that said, none of the studies show that just because you go out for athletics, you become better as a person. In fact, Dr. Sharon Stoll at the University of Idaho, one of our leading experts in the nation, her studies will tell you it's probably just the opposite. Sport does not teach character unless the coaches intentionally teach character. And so that's where we work with coaches to say, if you want to make the impact, let's intentionally teach character through sport. Let's, we give them application models. How do you teach a skill? How do you teach a character skill so that they can teach that so it has that impact you're talking about? And we talk about, you've been on one of those great teams. And a great team is a team that reaches potential. And I think you talked about, the difference is pushing to win or pushing against something else. And our idea is, no, push yourself and our team to reach potential. Be as good as we can be. Because as a coach, there's some games we win, I'm not very happy. because we played poorly but won.
Right.
And some games in contests where we lost, but I'm fine because we played as good as we could play. And that's the marker we should be at. And we talk about the two ways you know you've been on a team like that. One is there's no regrets when you're done. You can look at each other in the eye and go, job well done. And the second test is all those teammates stay in your life. They're with you 5, 10, 15, 20 years later.
Nice. Rob, thanks so much for the work that you're doing in the world. What's the URL? Where should we send people who want more information about proactive coaching and the great work you guys are doing?
I'll just give you 3 quick things. Our website, which is proactivecoaching.info, and that's a little different, so it's proactivecoaching.info. Our Facebook page, if you just search for Proactive LLC, you will find us on Facebook. And then lastly, my own email address, which is rob@proactivecoaching.info.
Great. We've got, I don't know, a couple more minutes. I want to make sure that not only can people find out more about that, but I want to, the kind of coaching that you're involved with is pretty specific and specific to, a bunch of things, including athletics, but it also is generalizable because of the team aspect, because of the leadership aspect, because of the performance aspect. When you talk to people like us who are doing coaching out there in the C-suites and in the executive world and with solopreneurs and like that, what's the number one thing you'd love to influence us to do or stop doing?
Well, I think we're focusing on what to do. And again, I'll use the phrase I've used before, developing a intentional culture is the key to I believe the key to everything. You got to develop that culture. But I really think to take a look at yourself as you're doing that coaching to that executive or that CEO, is they have to sit back and say, okay, I'm in a leadership position, but am I being a leader or a manager? And I think as we've seen people over time come up, we see a lot of people that necessarily aren't in leadership. And what I mean by that is one thing we hear the most from college coaches, high school coaches, pro coaches, we don't have any leaders anymore. And I sit back and I kind of disagree with that statement, and I kind of agree with it. I mean, I love today's young people that are approaching where we're going and where you're trying to lead them into executive positions. But I kind of agree we're lacking leadership. And so we have to be really intentional about our leadership, whether it's the CEO or the CEO developing leaders within his staff, his or her staff. They need to really, really focus on developing top-notch leaders that will mentor people behind them and give them ownership. So the 2 words I think the most, if you're looking for, leadership and ownership. Yeah. Let's lead people, not boss them, and give them the ability to get the job done. That ownership. Once people take ownership, they'll run with it. If they're sitting back thinking they're doing it for you, they're not going to do it as well.
I love that. Man, if we could just sprinkle that throughout the universe,
everywhere.
Right? Exactly.
Everywhere.
I also love what I heard as sort of a background piece is that it sounds like you really believe in what I'm going to call cascading leadership, or that notion that you're not a leader until you've developed another leader who's got people following him or her. In other words, leadership begets leadership. Am I picking that up right, Rob?
Yeah, because we tell everybody, you don't have to have a title, you don't need to be a senior, you don't need to be talented to be a leader. Everybody on the team can lead. Everybody should lead, even without a title. What can you do to lead? And so, yeah, leadership should go all the way throughout the whole system. Everybody should lead in some way, form, or size.
And we've all seen that not only in athletics, where it's not necessarily the superstar of the team who's the team sort of glue, but also especially in the boardroom, right? We all know that guy or woman who's not doesn't have the top job, but is the one who knows what's going on and is connected to everybody and everything.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's our time, sir. That would be Rob Miller. You can go find out more immediately by going to proactivecoaching.info, proactivecoaching.info, or you can check out Proactive LLC on Facebook, or just email the guy, because he's a regular guy and doing incredible work in the world. Any last question for you?
I am just so elated that you came on the show, and thanks for sharing this. Thanks for doing the profound work that you're doing with children everywhere and companies worldwide. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Well, thanks for having me, and I just gave everybody one last thought. When you spend days every day inside schools, you realize, as bad as we hear things, we got some great young people. We're going to be okay.
Boy, we need that. Thank you very much for that. All right, go enjoy that delicious barbecue in Missouri. Thanks so much for being with us today, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
That's Rob Miller. You can find out more by going to proactivecoaching.info. That's proactivecoaching.info, or check him out on Facebook at Proactive LLC. Your name is Clarice Connolly. It's been delightful having you today. Thanks so much for being here.
Coming back.
Oh, yeah. With this, I kind of had to. Once again, you can find Clarice by going to empoweringwomen, plural, .coach, singular. And me, I'm Christopher McAuliffe. You can check me out at ChristopherMcAuliffe.com or AccomplishmentMedia.com or TheCoachingShow.com, or, also check out our sponsor, AccomplishmentCoaching.com. This is The Coaching Show, each week bringing you somebody out on the cutting edge of coaching. We will talk to you next week.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released, and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.
Cybersecurity is the fastest growing job sector. The San Diego Mayor's Cyber Cup encourages kids to consider computer security as an interesting course of study and a valuable career path. Securing Our eCity helps lead this youth competition to create interest and awareness among students and their schools. The San Diego Mayor's Cyber Cup. Learn more at securingourecity.org or call 619-630-2444.
Do you love wine, but it doesn't love you back in the morning? Then it's time to try Alcotox, the ultimate hangover cure. Alcotox is a dietary supplement that reduces the harmful side effects of alcohol, and it benefits all alcohol consumers, not just those who occasionally overindulge. So now, for less than the cost of a drink, you can wake up hangover